Ring the bell. So welcome. I don't believe we have any guests today. Just our own people.
I had invited on Kate from Andrew's other club in Uganda, but she
Isn't here yet.
Not on yet.
All right.
maybe
Well, welcome everybody. Mike's not with us, so our invocation. Shall we try the Rotary Grace?
Yeah.
Sure.
O Lord, the giver of all good,
Good. We thank thee for our daily food.
may
Rotary
Rotary
friends
friends
and Rotary ways.
help us to serve thee all our days.
Wow, that's been a while since we. Yeah, so we're still going to continue with our land acknowledgement. So we'd like to acknowledge that here in Bowmanville, we're on the territory covered by the Williams Treaty, and that this land is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We offer our gratitude to our Indigenous peoples for their care of the land and their teachings about our earth. Pauline, any birthdays or anniversaries?
Yes, President Amy. Who is it now? He's not here, but Chris Salasco is having a birthday today. Are you on the screen, Chris? No? He's out having birthday cake. And that's it for birthdays. There's no anniversaries. And guess who's celebrating 5 years of service above self? Da 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 da. President Amy.
All right. Okay. Oh, we got a couple more people joining us. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Joe. He's going to come forward, and he's going to have the honor with Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Very cool.
You can hear-
So can you see me? Because I'm going to be.
Joe?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
You're very small, though.
No, that's okay. All right. So maybe I should sit over here. Can you see me okay? Andrew? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. I can see you.
Okay, there we go. So the last year and a half have shown us all how important frontline workers are. They have been literally on the front lines in our battle with COVID, also among the people who are most at risk for developing post-traumatic stress. According to the Mayo Clinic, you can develop PTSD when you go through, see, or learn about an event involving actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violation. And some of the people at risk of PTSD are frontline medical and emergency workers, fire, police, military personnel, victims of abuse, and symptoms can surface sometimes years after the events. Our own Andrew Ssawe, as I learned in a conversation with him, has experienced PTSD firsthand. It goes back to when he was working as a reconstructive surgeon with Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, in Rwanda following the war there in the 1990s. He's agreed to talk to us about it this morning. Andrew, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So how did this start for you, your experience with PTSD? Take us through that.
Usually PTSD or any mental health related challenges is kind of an outcome of an accumulation of different events. And you usually get to a point where you experience that event either in person or witness it, that eventually causes you to break down. And so since my childhood in Uganda, I grew up in eastern part of Uganda. We had experienced war, grew through Amin's time, Idi Amin's time, and then many other regimes happened. And so many people were killed during that time. Some of them we witnessed as children, and others would find the bodies. And so it's something that kind of stayed on with us. But you kind of grow through it because you have so many people who have experienced it, and you kind of find a way of surviving with each other. But in this particular case, we were a group of Christian professionals from Uganda who had organized to go with our Rwandese friends to go to Rwanda and do whatever we could as a small group of Christians. But then we heard about the MSF, or the Médecins Sans Frontières, who were also trying to do some work there, but they needed some help from people who were local. So I joined that team, and we went there to try and do the repair work after the genocide in Rwanda. And during that process, we were distributed to different villages. And in this particular village where I went to, we actually got a number of people who were not trying to use their traditional system to build, build peace. They didn't have enough money to hire experts to come and help them, but they're trying to do this. And I was assigned to one family where there was a child who was a survivor, but was really in a very poor state of health. Physically, mentally, and also impacting the family and the neighbors. This child had survived a horrific traumatic event where the people who were supposed to have killed this child actually struck the child against the wall a few times, the mother says, and left this child there for dead. And miraculously, this child did not die, but of course the damage was done. The child, by the time this happened, was just about 8 months, they say, as a boy. So the reason why they were attacking boys, especially at the time, was because they said boys would eventually grow up to avenge whatever was happening. So they prefer to kill them. And so this child survived, but the way that they lived was in a very poor condition. And so for me, living with this family and working with this family on a regular basis to support this child, among others, was something that eventually got to me. So that's the turning point for my mental health at the time.
So was this at the point you realized that you had been suffering from PTSD for many years? Because this takes years to surface sometimes.
That's right. So the experiences with this child kind of took me back to many other events, many other people who were brutally murdered, or people who survived brutal events in their lives. And so all those things that I witnessed, but also some of the things that happened to myself that I had also survived myself, eventually all kind of stayed on my mind throughout. And the main questions that were coming to my mind at the time was, why does humanity really do this to each other? Why do we have to do such things to each other? And sometimes it's just because somebody's different or somebody's coming from a different region. And for us in Uganda, it's not just Uganda, but in Rwanda in that case as well. Somebody coming from a different place or somebody looking different is just enough to make them a victim of your violence, and then you kill them or you mutilate them or do whatever you want, but just because they're different. It kind of took me a lot back then, and I think the failure to get answers, the immediate answers in that case is what triggered me off, I believe.
What type of symptoms did you have?
I believe the very foremost one was withdrawal. I cried in the night because I could not show the family that I had broken down. So I would cry in the night, and in the morning, I tried to be as brave as I could as a professional. But then whenever I would kind of take walks is the time I break down. And so the other challenge is that in Africa, mental illness is something that is typically hidden. And I don't think it's only Africa. I think it's in many places that mental illness is something that is hidden. And so it's even worse in the medical profession that when you're in it, you're supposed to be the person helping that. So when you start breaking down, that is just not acceptable from a visual place. So you have to carry it through. And then when you get to your private places, when you cry, crash and cry and do whatever, but next day you have to repeat that again. And so doing that over and over a 3 months period, it eventually gets to you.
I had read that somewhere that Sunday, which is where you're from, was called Idi Amin's killing field. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you must have either witnessed or heard about a number of things that Amin's government or his regime did in your town.
I remember a few cases where the killings during Amin were not as private, In some cases, he used what they call firing squads. And so just like what you may have had with the Taliban recently, they bring somebody, they tie them up on a tree and they fire. And everybody in that area has to go and witness that. And whether you're a child or an adult, you go and witness it. And so you see some people kind of screaming and they get tied around the tree. And as a little child at the time, memories as when I was in kindergarten, I would see some of these things growing up. So you can imagine carrying that memory as a child, and you can't talk to to other people because everybody comes back from there. They keep quiet. Nobody's talking to each other. No professionals come out to help people, and so you live with that until something else triggers it again. And whenever something happens, you find yourself going through all these events to the very first ones that you remember. And so that's just a challenge of trauma, that you keep reliving each one of them. Every time any one of them triggers you, you live each one of them again afresh. That's the challenge.
Can't imagine. I just can't. I don't think anyone here, everyone's looking around, shaking their heads and looking at each other. Can't imagine. So how did you finally get treated, and does it ever really go away?
So a couple of things maybe to mention there as well, before I even address that. One thing is that as a male, it's always very difficult to seek help. And then as a medical professional, it's very, very difficult to seek help. And so combining those two and the general lack of such service, it took me really a long time to get to a place where I sought help. But I think it started with me talking to my spiritual leader at the time, is where I went and opened up. He was actually a Catholic priest, but a very social person. I went to him and I said, because I refer them as Father, as I said, Father, I am struggling. And I shared with him what happened. And so he approached it in a very different way. He knew that I would, and I told him that my problem is that if you try to use any typical book-based things, then I will kind of think it through ahead of you and I will not find it helpful. Use a different approach for me. I need something that I can walk with you, anticipating what I don't know. That is what would help me. So he started using more of a blend between the spiritual and the traditional. And as an elderly person, he knew that I would look up to him with respect. And so he used that approach, but he also knew that I didn't have anywhere else to turn to. So I always turn to God for guidance. And I usually say that, even if God is not there, at least that concept alone was very helpful for me to survive through that time. So I would always turn to that being that I would turn to, and I speak to them privately and confidentially about my issues. And that's kind of the path that he used. And it made me kind of walk the journey with him. That was the very first part of it. When I came to Canada, I would say, is where I met a few friends, medical professionals that I opened up to. And I shared with them some of my experiences because they would try to ask me some questions. And as usual, I've shut down. And I didn't expect that I would do that. And I didn't know that I was doing it. But I would shut down and I would avoid that topic completely. And I start talking about something else. And I think it's some kind of survival thing that most of the people who suffered trauma go through, that they would avoid that topic or just try to numb themselves whenever that topic comes up and they can't escape it. You just numb yourself through it. And so that's kind of how I survived it most of the times. And then the other piece that helped me a lot was the counselors from the MSF, Medicine Sans Frontier, because they have that, being somebody who worked in the trauma section, that every time before you go for any mission or after, you'd actually undergo that. And so I experienced some of these supports, but also I think the other thing that changed me, I think, was more the life itself, that I found good people. And I remember when my mother prayed for me when I was leaving home, she said, may God lead you to good people. I found good people here who actually helped me change the thinking about humanity, that humanity was not as bad after all, that they were good people. So the way people settled me into this country, supported me through the challenges of resettlement, kind of, it brought back the trust in humanity again, something that I had lost completely. So those are the things I think that helped me really recover. And certainly with some of these things, you can't say you're completely recovered because they keep coming back at different times, though at different, with a different strength, it's a weaker one, but it still comes back. And so I still struggle with it, but at least I know that I have help. That's the best part of it.
You work at a community clinic in South Riverdale.
That's right.
You see a lot of people there. There are a lot of people who come from places where they've seen war, the type of things that we haven't. Do you see a lot of people suffering from PTSD there that you work with at your clinic?
You could see the signs. You could see the signs. People who have suffered sexual violence, which I think is rated as the second major cause of PTSD in Canada. And there are others who have also suffered physical violence coming from war zones. There was a time where I was given the responsibility of working as the in charge for the newcomers to Canada and looking at their health. I worked with refugees who came from Iraq, refugees who came from Lebanon and Syria at the time. But based on my experiences and knowing the things that they struggle with that they would never talk about, or having an idea about them based on my personal experiences, I designed some interventions, the social, the clinical, and even the nutritional, to embody that, so that mental illness or trauma was integral to what everybody else was doing. So it was very, very helpful. We actually ended up winning an award as an organization, being recognized for the clinical interventions we had and the social interventions we had. I was also very fortunate to work with another social worker who had suffered the same from Iraq. So we would sit together and we talk about this and say, okay, this is the reality. How do we approach it? How do we approach it in a way that does not make this person feel defensive, but that they realize that we recognize what they're going through? And that's how we designed our programs, the clinical and social working together, and then eventually creating some education sessions for people who would sponsor refugees and so on. Because out of goodwill, people do good, but they don't know the trauma that comes with that, and they don't know what triggers them. Because some of them were struggling, some of the refugees who came through would struggle, and they say, this person is saying this, they don't understand that. And so we would kind of gather the families together and educate them about what not to say and why they shouldn't do that. And in a different way, not necessarily reprimanding them, but just telling them the trauma these people have suffered and things that would trigger them. So it kind of was education. And to our surprise, every time we hosted these sessions, we would have a full house. The rooms were smaller than the number of people who would want to come in. And yet we thought maybe it would just be about 10 people. So a lot of need for information to help other people. People want to help, but they don't know how to necessarily do it and keep themselves safe, and also the other party safe. So that's yeah. So
people have, I think people might have some questions. Does anyone have any questions for Andrew? Anybody? I'll just have one last question for you, Andrew. Oh, sorry. Somebody, Rachel, you have a question?
I did, and Jen Turner had her hand up as well.
Okay, sorry.
Andrew, have things changed at all in Uganda as far as mental health and people being able to speak up about it? Or, I mean, a lot of, I think your recovery was in Canada, but had you been in Uganda, you know, is there much help in Uganda right now?
it's starting to happen. It's starting to happen. So one of the poorly funded sectors in Uganda in the Ministry of Health is the mental health part of it. It's really struggling. And there's a stigma around it also. When somebody shows or demonstrates any struggles mentally, they always call you by the name of the hospital or the medical facility where people used to be taken for mental health. So they don't necessarily talk about it that way. They just say, this person, like if it was to be, for instance, say, Sunnybrook as an example, and they say, this is a Sunnybrook person. This is a Sunnybrook person. So they don't talk about mental illness, but they talk about it in that context. So it stigmatizes the institution, it stigmatizes the service and so on. And so I think the change started when Yes, there are a number of medical professionals who are trying to speak up, but they don't have much of the resource or the platform to do it. But the nonprofit organizations that were working with victims of violence and survivors of war in northern Uganda are the ones that started doing this. And so Care International, World Vision, among others, were some of the organizations that were really driving this and speaking out about it and addressing it, and facilitating community conversations about this and connecting people to services. So they're starting to happen, but to be honest, it's still very weak, very, very weak.
Thank you.
Other
And
questions?
thank you, Andrew, for speaking up. It's really hard to listen to because it's really important, and I'm proud of you for talking to us about it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Jennifer, did you have a question? No? Okay. Yeah, Andrew, I just want to end by echoing Rachel's thank you. And also just to ask, what is it like to talk about this now? Is it beneficial for you or is it difficult?
It is actually one of the things that a friend of mine encouraged me to do. And so I had started a few years ago talking in small groups, sharing my parts of the stories that I felt comfortable with in small groups. I also facilitated similar sessions with the University of Toronto students a few times. I was also hosted at some of the universities, including McMaster, to talk to students about the same. So talking about it in a way is therapeutic. The challenge about it though is that when say you gather like this and you talk about it, it would be better if there was support available for even people who are listening, because different people get triggered differently as well. So if such information that I shared today triggered you, I apologize for that. But if you can find help as well, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody about it, then please do. But I always encourage people, when you go through a session like this, or when you listen to some of these triggering events or events that are completely new like this, if you find that it weighs you down, either talk to somebody or seek help as well, just for that moment. It's not that you have suffered mental illness, but as we said earlier, exposure to it in itself is not a healthy thing. And so even as we discuss this, we talk about what's happening in the world, but we also need to help each other. Rotary Club does this work, and it's part of what drew me to a Rotary Club, because you're after peace, we're after peace, and we're also after improving humanity. And so for me, anything that is involving any of these two, I find myself drawn to it without even thinking. So thank you for listening to me and for giving me a chance to walk this journey again.
Well, thank you, Andrew.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much. Sort of things. We're going on to Happy Bucks. An odd segue there, but do we have any Happy Bucks? So,
Happy bucks. I'm sure I've got a 5 in here. 5 happy bucks for just being back here, and what a wonderful facility this is. Fabulous. Thanks for suggesting it. So look forward to seeing all you bunch here too.
yeah, you're gonna have to come in.
Round with that.
Are you? Okay. You can be. I'm not taking the money.
I got 5 happy bucks, same reason as Pauline. If you want, I'll come round and pick up any happy bucks you've got, guys. Just wait for me.
People probably don't have cash. What's that?
That's okay. You can dig.
Well, while Renee's digging, I've got Adrian $10. It's fine.
Oh, yay.
For not wearing his pin at the flag raising.
I have
Amy, I have 5 happy bucks. I missed the last couple of meetings because I was in Ottawa. I'm now back. I was planning to come to the meeting today at Rehoboth, but I've got a bit of a cold, so I thought it best not come today. Actually, in point of fact, We used to attend Rehoboth Church many years ago, so I'm very familiar with the building.
I wondered where you were, Chris. I've been by your house a couple times to drop something off to you, so.
No,
Now I know
I
you're
was,
home.
I was working hard in Ottawa.
Look at all this money. Okay, so
Yeah, I have $5 happy. My mother had the good fortune to get into a long-term care home, Glen Hill Strathaven, which after 2.5 months at St. Mike's in downtown Toronto was quite a relief. And it's interesting, they're wonderful there so far. I mean, it's a great place. And, you know, I know that they had some problems many years ago in the past, but Christian Homes has done a great job. But it's interesting what she said, you know, she's half the time she doesn't know what's going on because she's on such bad pain, such severe painkillers and opiates. But she said, you know, this is starting a new life, you know, and at 91 to go into some place where you're confused really about where you are. She can't remember the name of the place. She can barely get out of bed. And then she says, you know, it's starting a new life and it's challenging at 91. So. But I'm happy
You feel
that,
a lot better.
yeah, I'm happy that she's here and I'm able to see her, you know, like around the corner, which is really nice.
Renee, you had happy bucks?
No?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I thought it was like for what you mentioned, but also the same thing, like that we are here. It was like a lot of organization and work, but hey, we made it and we hope to see more people next time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You collected more, John. Who else?
Ted.
Ted Watson.
Same thing, part of it, a lot of mine was a little delinquent, handing it in.
Fred?
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here, happy to be anywhere today.
Yeah.
Kelly?
Mine's actually sad.
Oh.
April, 1st of April, I fell off a step stool, shattered my foot. It's still not healed. I cracked my elbow at the same time, and I tore my rotator cuff of my left arm. I'm a friggin' mess.
I think you need to change your name to Calamity Jane. Yeah.
Well, you know, when I moved into the condo, my grandson would bring my ladders. I'm not allowed to get on.
Wayne?
Yeah, it's just great to be back, and it was great to have the family all together this Thanksgiving, the first time in about, what, year and a half or more, all good stuff.
What a beautiful thing.
Did I miss anybody? I think I got them all.
Perfect. Well, there you go. The kitty's looking nice in there. So, Jason, I'm gonna throw you on the spot there. You're gonna do
All
a
good.
report.
So, hi, everybody. It's I've been away a little bit, but been a little bit on the busy side, and excuse my attire today. Had to walk the dogs at 6, and it's basically a shower after we get done here. I thought I would, for a community report, just give you a little bit update on real estate, since that's what we do. Some of the rules have been changing. You're gonna start seeing open houses again, which I think we're a little early on that, but they've changed that law and allowing open houses to happen. I just don't think having a lot of people in your houses touching all your things is a great thing. And we used to have basically no overlapping of showings. So when you're showing your house, there was only one group of people allowed to be in your home at one time. And it was only basically, you're allowed only 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Now they're allowing hour showings again, overlapping showings. You know, you're supposed to do protocols, but no one, you know, there's a lot of people that do not follow that kind of stuff. So that's one part of it. And I thought I'd give you guys some stats just so you kind of have an understanding of the housing activity in Clarington. So basically with the Clarington, it's basically Curtis, Bowmanville, and Newcastle. I'm going to go to January, and there's 89 active homes. So that basically says that there's 89 listings put on the market during January. And that's everywhere from a detached home, townhomes, linked homes, and vacant lands. During that month, 112 sold. So that means that there is homes that were listed maybe December or November, but they actually sold during the month of January. The average sale price was $861,556. So that's a high, like, you know, I remember a few years ago thinking the house at 500,000 was like, oh my God, like that's a big amount of money. 861,000, like that's crazy. So then I jumped up to October and we went to 100 active listings, 187 houses sold, and the average price jumped up to $937,000. So that's a $76,000 jump in average price from January to October. Which again, it's just showing that the market is not going any, like, I thought with COVID that we'd be going down, but we just keep going up. And I have no idea when that balloon is gonna burst, but it's crazy. And then it's about inventory. Right now, total inventory in all of Clarington, there's 79 listings listed right now. There's 32 in Bowmanville. And that's again, a mix of detached, links, townhomes. I have no condos in here. I just went to work with the houses and stuff like that. And then the average day on market is at the lowest is 4 and at the highest is 165. Now the 165 is typically vacant land because it just doesn't sell as fast as most homes or whatever. And with pricing, like the list prices, the low, basically everyone's selling their houses at $599 to a high of $4,200,000. So it's, when you look at active listings, those are low. So that's the driver behind the pricing that's out there. The average price, $937. It's like I bought my first house for $138,000. And you know, you try to think of new people trying to get into the market these days, and you know, I don't know where the money is coming from. But that's my little hip hop on the community report for real estate.
Do you have any questions? Joe?
Yeah, Jason, I was talking to one of your colleagues, Nisi Dillon. You know her, I'm sure, another real estate agent, president of Whitby Sunrise. She was saying that one of the things that's happening is people from Durham are getting priced out by people from Toronto who are selling their houses for a lot more and then can move out here and get more houses. Are you seeing that? Like people, you know,
Oh, yeah.
your neighbors getting priced out?
Yeah, the main people are coming from basically Mississauga, Brampton, and Scarborough. Those are the 3 pockets that they're coming from, like predominantly. And like I said, so say they're selling, I'm just going to give a fictitious number. They're selling for $1 million and they're coming here and buy it for 500. So they can come in and throw an extra $200,000 on the list price. And so they're pricing that people out of the market. So basically most of the people that we have here in Bowmanville, we're having to go actually North Lindsay, Peterborough, going to Northumberland and going all the way to Belleville. I've sold 5 houses this year that people actually sold here, and they actually moved to the East Coast because that was just their only way that they were going to try and put some money into their pocket, which, you know, and they're all roughly my age, and they were all moving up to the East Coast. Which again, they're buying stuff out there for $350 and, you know, nothing to do. So that they're trying to do that same thing that the people are from Mississauga and whatever, they're selling for high and going to buy something low. So this is just their way of saying, you know, there's no ties here. They're like, we're going to go there and put some money in our pocket and start our lives out there. So yeah, that's a huge thing. That's a big push for those prices.
The average number of listings that you've talked about, it's around 100 or less than 100 for, I guess, the last few months. That doesn't seem like a lot of listings for an area of that size. Why is that? Can you explain why there's so few?
Well, I think it's because we're in a market too, that people are saying, well, if I'm selling, like if you're trying to sell and buy in the same market, like unless you're moving away, it doesn't make any sense. Like, because the numbers are just crazy. There's some people that could sell their house and they might not qualify to get a new house at the higher price. They might have cash, but the bank may not, they were approved for 600,000, but now all of a sudden here's your average price of $937,000. They might have cash, but they might, again, because everyone runs their houses too, like the debt people running these days, people are spending money like there's no tomorrow. And I don't think that they can afford to move is the biggest reason why there's no listings. I think the listings that are happening is people that have to sell or are moving east, north, to get out. And that's where I think the lowest activity. All my bankers say there's more people refinancing, right? So people are working off of this, because like I said, 2 years ago, these same houses were worth 600, 700, and now they're going for 900 to $1 million. So everyone's capitalizing on that big number and doing lines of credit and then using that money to go. Some people are putting into stocks, the Bitcoin, they're buying boats, ATVs, all the stuff that they couldn't buy before, or trying to pay off some of their other lines of credit that they've had.
Jason?
Yeah.
Jason, the bump in the prices of Clarington as a percentage, would you say it's significantly higher than other parts of the GTA, or about the same?
No, I think the bump is here because the affordability of the homes or whatever. So I think we're having more activity here than we are in the other GTA part. It's but like I said, I know Scarborough is busy only because they're all moving. They're coming over here. So because everyone wants to go out and buy cottages, they want to get out to the east. It was a COVID thing that everyone was like, "Get me the heck out of the GTA air." And I think our percentage-wise, right? So I think percentage-wise, I think we had a bigger bump out here than the GTA. It's and the condo market, it's not as crazy as detached homes. Like detached homes is what's the difference.
Wayne?
Thank you.
Not so much questions, Jason, but you mentioned how much you paid for your house. I can remember Carol and I, when we bought our first house in Oshawa, it was $14,900. And now you can pay more just for the options on a car than we did for a house back then. So you start to look at it. Really.
Yeah, and like it's crazy. It's like I said, a week ago I had a house on Rhonda, and it needed kitchens, bathrooms, like they put some paint on it. But I sold it for over $1 million. And last year across the street, it was only 700,000 and it was done. So this past year has been absolutely crazy with the demand. Like the demand is just there. It's crazy.
Pauline?
Jason, has this had an effect on the rental market also? I know my brother lives in Barrie and he says that rentals are almost impossible, to the fact that in Barrie, they're now allowing people, even in subdivisions, to build another small home on their lot if it's going to be for rental. Is that happening here too?
Yeah, there's the demand for rental. Like again, I have a bunch of rentals myself, and I wish I could kick everybody out and put new people in because I'd be in huge positive cash flow. The average house used to be call it $1,400-1,600, and now they're going for over $3,000 for rent per month, plus utilities.
Jason?
Yeah.
I talked to somebody on that note over the weekend, 2 people that had rental properties. And because the governments seem to relax everybody's requirement to pay through COVID, a lot of them had big receivables, and people weren't paying their rent. So everybody understands the Landlord-Tenant Act, and they know that they don't have to pay. And so what they did was both these guys between the two of them had about 5 properties, and gave their tenants 60 days notice, and took advantage of the huge real estate market and sold them and got them out. And that's one of the reasons I think that there's such a shortage of rental, is because the market to sell is fantastic. And the government is allowing people who can afford to pay not to pay. And when that's a very, very disastrous recipe.
It is. I think it's disgusting. It's thank God all my tenants are paying. It's but yeah, and that whole tenant act is crazy because it's all about the tenants, nothing about the landlord. It's like they might as well call it the tenant act, not the landlord-tenant act.
Ellie.
Yeah, Jason, do you know anything about the approved potential apartment buildings that are being built on the southeast corner of 57 and Highway 2, plus the one behind Walmart? Is this actually happening? Do you know anything about that?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of what's happening with those. You hear a little scuttlebutt here and there, but I don't know exactly about those. It's that's more of a town question, seeing where they are with that.
Yeah, Joe.
Sorry. Jason, there's a lot of talk, the government should do this, the government should do that, about rising house prices. Seems to me that it's a matter of supply and demand. Is there anything the governments can actually do to stem the rising tide of house prices?
Well, our governing body, they've talked about, so here's when you have those multiple offers, right? So it's when I have more than one offer on a property, I try and play each realtor off of each other. And basically I'm playing on people's emotions. I know it sounds bad, but if I'm working for the seller, I'm trying to get them the most amount of money in their pocket. So they've talked about, and those are all closed, like people do not know what each other is bidding, but they've talked about allowing it to work almost like an auction. So it's like, great, I'll give you 9. And they're going to say, I'll give you 901. Go back and forth till someone says, great, I'll take it. That's one thing that they've talked about. Just so it's all kind of open book, so it drives that price down versus, you're playing on people's emotion, you try to figure out stuff, but there's a little bit of a math to working multiple offers, and it's our duty too. When we're on the buyer side, it's like, great, you're overpaying for this property if you pay this many years, like 27. I'd have to tell a client, it's like, great, you're gonna have to wait at least 2 years. You're okay with that? Great. If not, then self-correction in the market before you do it. But that's the funny part, is that we keep waiting for that little bit of correction to happen. And, so people are like going, wow, well, it's already went up an extra $100,000 since the time that we started trying to look for a home. Like I said, between January and October, the average price, 76,000 ahead. So people who didn't buy in January are going, oh my God, I'm losing money by not buying into the market.
Yes, Doug.
Just wanted to add a comment, because part of the thing that government can do as well is new house development. Even though it looks like there's lots of development in the area, it's actually relative to demand low. And there's lots of hurdles for development. And so I know the resale homes, lots of demand for those because there's not as much new home opportunity for people, right? And so that goes into the supply mix as well. So that's a big challenge. And I think that's an area that can be worked on to bring more supply. I mean, COVID didn't help with pricing as well, because there was big costs put on lots of development because wood went through the roof. Right? Just and another comment about the open bidding. On the one hand, You may not pay 100,000 more than the second bidder, but at the same time, there's comments in Australia that have that the emotion of standing in front of a house and bidding on a house can also inflate prices.
Yes.
Equal, different in different ways, but it's a double-edged sword to know what other people are bidding, because, oh, I'll pay 10 more, oh, and then I'll pay 10 more. So it's a balance, right? Devil you know, devil you don't.
The moral of the story is my children are never leaving home because they'll never be able to afford a house.
Yeah, it's true.
But there's a lot of that too. Like there's a lot of families combined, like the kids and their parents are looking for those, in-law basement apartments and stuff to happen.
Or on my street alone.
There's lucky we have 2 kitchens, they each got a floor.
And also just one other thing, Clarington now is working through a proposed bylaw or what have you change that is going to expand the ability to have additional dwelling units. So, normally it's like you're gonna have one in your house, your basement apartment or what have you. But they're changing some of the rules so that you can have not only an additional dwelling unit in your home, but you can have another dwelling unit in a separate building on your property, like a garage converted or that sort of thing. So they're just working through that right now with the town, but that's something that's coming as well.
All right, thanks very much, Jason
Well,
and Doug. Okay, so some announcements. Ted?
Christmas trees are fast approaching. Sounds strange, but they're ordered. I expect we'll start opening. We've been planning on opening on the 20th, 21st, and then we'll close for a few days and then open again the following weekend. And then we'll be open all the way through. So we're sold out. I'm tentatively set the 9th of November for setup. Keep that date open. I'll have a letter going out later this week. So it'll all be come out in print if I can remember how to do the Rotary way of sending it out. I need a refresher from last year. Anyways, it's coming. If you're signing up, we ask that if possible, don't be too specific. In the past, we've asked, are you available weekdays, week evenings, weekends, or anytime, and be as general as possible. I know it's not possible for everybody to be general. You're away, but if you're, say, available weekdays or week evenings or weekends, if you're suggesting that, then say, I'm tied up on such and such a date. It's a little early, but we have to get the, I need a rough draft by the end of this month for a work schedule so we can catch people that haven't replied. And then the simplest way is just send an email out if you have to change something to broadcast email, and usually somebody will trade. If not, I'll try and cover it one way or another. So that's really just to keep people. Sounds early, but no, it's coming.
How many trees did we order, Ted?
Oh, 590, I think it is. Yeah, added 15 trees for last year.
Okay. And we were sold out early last year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's the earliest, I think the earliest we've ever sold out.
Perfect.
But it's, I don't know, maybe we should order more, but we discussed it. And that's what we decided.
Perfect.
Ted, are you looking for volunteers or?
Yes, we will be looking for extra volunteers. I've been in touch with the high school. They're going to get us a list of kids that can come.
Okay.
And I will be sending a letter out to the hockey team again this year because they were good. And the other thing is the first two, like the weekend of the, not the first weekend we're open, but the next two are usually the busiest. So if somebody's not able to handle trees, it's a good idea to avoid those days. But
Yeah, because there is some lifting to it, so,
there's yeah, exactly.
all right. Phil, you're still on here. Do you want to give us something about Saturday?
Yeah, so thanks, Amy. We have the bottle drive coming up this week on Friday between 4 and 6 at Wilmot Creek. I believe the trailer will be there and will be set up to receive bottles and so forth. And on Saturday from 10 until 4 at Watson's, we'll also be set up there, hopefully for the drive-through to receive bottles and all of that. So I'm sending out an email today looking for a few volunteers. I think we're going to need around 5 people per shift. So we're looking at having ones running from 10 until 1 and then 1 until 4. And yeah, so that's, excited about that. And hopefully that goes off without a hitch.
Perfect. All right. I mentioned it, I think, a couple of times, but we were gifted 2 tickets to the Bowmanville Hospital Foundation virtual gala. Nobody's claimed them yet. So I know last year, Steve, we got tickets and we split them, did we not?
Yes.
Yeah, because you took 1 ticket for you and Tori, and I had a ticket for Len and I. So there are still 2 tickets. Let me know if anybody wants them. It's October 29th. It's virtual. That's all I know about it so far. We do have a board meeting tomorrow night. Totally forgot about it till yesterday. So it could be short.
Okay, I sent lots of reminders.
Club Rock is giving you some issues. Yeah, so that's tomorrow at 7. We're gonna do it still Zoom. Hopefully we can get into not Zoom. We received a lovely thank you note from Zoe Smith. I don't know if you can see that. She sent her grad picture. She was one of our bursary recipients. So this is Steve's daughter, and her grandmother would be very proud that she sent out a thank you note. But yeah, so very nice. Received that.
What's she doing?
She's good. She's at Queen's. Yeah, so she's pretty excited. She was our St. Stephen's graduate, and now she's at Queen's and doing well. So yeah. And I got a note yesterday or an email from Dave Andrews. Yes, that's right. They're doing another flag raising at Durham headquarters. Anyway, it's October the 19th at 10:45. I don't know if anybody can go from our club. I can't go again. It's too much time off work for raising flags lately. So if there's anybody who can go, please let me know. We're supposed to bring our proclamation, which I'll get to you.
Next Tuesday
Yeah, that'll be next Tuesday.
at 10:45.
Yeah, at Durham headquarters. I guess all the presidents are, or
Whitby?
yeah, Roslyn. Garden. Oh, okay. Yeah, is it Whitby and Roslyn and Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great, Joe. If you can do that, fantastic.
Just send me the-
I'll send you the details. Yeah. Okay, is there any other announcements?
Amy,
Yeah,
It's done.
sorry.
it's
Don?
just full disclosure. I just didn't want you to think Mike DeRoge shirked his responsibility on the invocation. He reached out to Gord and Jason and myself last night that he wasn't going to be here. And I made the mistake of being the first one to reply. So I got the responsibility. You jumped to the prayer pretty fast, so we'll save it for another time. But I just didn't want you to think that Mike shirked his responsibility.
Thanks, Don. I won't charge him. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to update everybody on the Sunday medical center thing. I told you I would go to all the clubs in the district to see if they would contribute. I took the easy way and sent out an email to every club president, all 55 of them. So far, we only had 2 replies. One of them, a check for $700. The other was an indication that if it was a grant application, they would become involved. So I know that, like Bowmanville, your budget has just been agreed on. And even Bowmanville hasn't decided on a contribution yet. But the next president's meeting, which I think is in a week's time, I will definitely be spending a lot of time pulling at their heartstrings. I'm sure they all now have budgets decided on, so hopefully we will get some more money. Whether we'll ever get the full amount, I don't know, but we're trying.
Just to take off from there, I have been working on this at the Steve Rutledge. I have got all the names over the weekend. I pulled all the names of the international directors. I am preparing a document that I'm going to be sending to the international directors of all the clubs. So I'm not going to go to the president level. I'm going to the people with the actual money at the international level. And we will see where we go from there. So by the end of this week, that email should be going out there. Problem that I've got
I'm actually finding that, emails, it's like,
Oh,
emails in.
this means I send email and I follow up with phone call. That's a given.
That's good,
That's me.
because the emails, they tend to a quick look and say, oh, forget that.
Yeah.
And
But the problem I've got, I've been fighting all weekend with that video that Catherine sent. I can't download that and attach it. It just, I don't know if it's proprietary protected. I have no clue, but I cannot get that down. Do you have another one that she sent?
I have what she sent.
I've got it as well, Joe. You sent it to me.
Yeah.
Try and download that from the email so I can just attach it without sending all that whole email.
If you want to forward it to me, and I can try to put it on the club's YouTube page.
Sure.
Then you can just send it in.
Send the link. I prefer to attach it because people don't want to.
Okay, then disregard.
Yeah.
All right.
I can just attach it.
Okay, I'll try sending you just the video.
Yeah.
And you can try and do your thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I just started on behalf of my friend Kate. Well, actually, I think the problem was, I'm not sure I sent her the Zoom link. Anything that our district can do or our club can do, they'll be grateful for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The way I'm trying to convince the clubs is, if we want to raise funds, we go out and shake a can or we do something, right? Sunday, totally different. The people there are not affluent. You can't go out and shake a can.
No.
What the people on Sunday are doing is the sweat part. They are physically going in there and finishing this building off, which is great. But then there's nothing to put in it.
Okay.
They can't get it themselves, but
I got an update on the building on Friday from them, and I got a couple extra pictures from her on Friday. So I'm putting all this together.
All right.
Okay.
Let's keep going because the hour is near. Jen Turner, do you have our quote?
I think she had dropped.
Well,
Let's see if it's in the chat. Is it in the chat?
Jen left it in the chat. It's, do you want me to go ahead? When we feel
Yeah.
weak, we drop
Please.
our heads on the shoulders of others. Don't get mad when someone does that. Be honored for that person trusted you enough to even subtly ask you for help. Lori Goodwin.
very good. Thank you, Leanna.
Welcome.
All right, that's it there's nothing else for the good of Rotary. Meeting adjourned.
That was great. Well done. Well done, Steve.